Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another off-season edition of Backyard Buckets, brought to you by Backyard Sports. Ryan, you are looking nice and clear in that crispy camera you got over there. How you doing, brother?
I'm good. There's a setting that says touch up how you look, which I need in real life. Uh, but it's nice to have on the camera too.
It is very nice.
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. It's been a while since I saw you. I'm glad to hear that you're doing all right. We are here again with an off-season trade. Last week, we talked about Damian Lillard being traded to Milwaukee, and in return, Jrue Holiday was sent to to Portland. Getting ahead of myself here. Recent news has come to light that Damian Lillard may not be as loyal a person as we originally thought, right? For years and years, we talked about him being the most loyal player in the NBA, always wanting to stick it out with his Portland team and his teammates there. But news has broken today that he has filed for divorce from his longtime wife. That means he had new city, new life. I'm going to leave the old stuff in the past. So good for him. We applaud anyone taking steps to make their life better. Whichever way you feel on that is up to you. But we figured we'd bring you the important NBA news. In less important NBA news, Jrue Holiday has also subsequently been traded from once Portland to now Boston. Right? So being included in this trade, as we mentioned, Jrue Holiday will now be playing for the Boston Celtics. In return, Portland will be receiving Robert Williams III, Malcolm Brogdon, who potentially, I think we've all kind of agreed in this podcast, talking offline, that could be moved again before the season starts. They're also receiving a 2024 first-round draft pick by way of Golden State and a 2029 unprotected first-round draft pick from the Boston Celtics. Ryan, initial thoughts on this trade. Talk to me.
My initial thought was very good return for the Dame trade as a whole, right? If you consider the Jrue return as part of the Dame trade, a lot of people were criticizing Portland as like not getting that much of a return for a superstar that has like quite a long time on his contract left. One thing we have to consider there is that he's 33, 32, 33, I think. So he's not like a 28-year-old superstar with 4 years left. He's a 33 with 4 years left. Big difference, but yeah, I think it's a good return. They need Holiday. I don't think made a ton of sense on the team. I think the guys that got back are either going to be legitimate contributors. Like I expect Robert Williams to likely be, and Malcolm Brogdon probably gets traded more than likely. It's possible they could use him as six-man, but I imagine if he wasn't happy in Boston, he won't be happy in Portland for different reasons. But I think that Boston is, they see the writing on the wall with Milwaukee and they fire back, right? There's something admirable about that. A lot of teams won't do that, so I have to give them some credit. I think they gave up a lot of depth to get him. I think they're relying pretty heavily on Kristaps to be healthy. Because if he is healthy, they're very scary.
Yeah.
If he looks like he did last year and can be okay on defense, which has been his problem since his knee injuries with the Knicks, has been his defensive contributions. They look pretty scary, but Jrue Holiday helps out with that, right? Like better perimeter defense, point of attack. Their starting lineup looks really strong. I just wonder what the rest of the team is going to look like.
Yeah.
As with every team that compiles stars, and I don't know how these people are paying these players with the new CBA. Like, how much are they paying in tax? I don't know what it is, but somebody's got some money.
Yeah. Well, as you informed me the other day, Boston used to be famously very stingy with paying out contracts. So my assumption is that they have just a lot of money piled up somewhere from back in the day before they started out giving out big deals to their young stars that they can just fall back on and pay all of these dudes all the money.
Yeah, and it's the same owner since the 50s.
Yeah, well, obviously.
So the same pool of money.
Exactly.
He just kept the team. He was like, yes, I only have $200,000 to my name, but I will not take $400 million for this team.
I just am envisioning the scene from Dark Knight where the Joker's in that like warehouse and he has that big pile of money, right? That's just the Celtics owner. She's like, well, I'll light it on fire, but instead of lighting it on fire, he's just trading for Jrue Holiday and paying Jaylen Brown the biggest contract ever.
Yeah, well, the good thing about that is the Joker only lights his own money on fire.
That is true.
And that's respectable. He
That's
leaves
true.
he leaves the money for the mobster that he made the deal with. He does threaten that mobster
Well,
that he's going to kill him. But like that's a good partner, right? Like, yeah, he burnt his own money, but like, what do I care? That means I have more money technically because there's less money in the world.
Do you think he was making up for the opening scene in the movie where he killed the rest of his crew?
No, I just well, okay. Are you saying financially?
Like, yeah, like or karma even.
As a business owner, we all know wages are what gets you, right? Like paying wages. So he was like, I got to kill all these people, reduce my wages, and so I can burn the money later.
I don't need all the money now that I have no employees.
Yeah.
Now I'm free to do what I want with it.
He went from a 50-man operation to a 25-man, and it's like, okay, saving on the bills, I can burn some money now. Yeah, it was all part of the plan.
As we know, he well thought out, villain. Thought of everything ahead of time. Yeah. So I think you brought up a good point with the Celtics here, right? You mentioned how is the rest of their team going to kind of fill out and step up in big moments, right? So assuming that their first two guys off the bench are going to be Dookie Howser's brother Sam and then Peyton Pritchard, I like their 7, right? But as we all know here, it takes more than 7 to make it through an 82-game season. And a deep run in the playoffs, you kind of shorten your bench so you don't need as many guys. But typically 8 is your playoff rotation, right? Especially if they're going to have to go through the team that we mentioned earlier, the Milwaukee Bucks, where they're going to have to throw a bunch of different guys at Giannis because they don't have the front court depth to be able to guard him one-on-one for the majority of the game, right? Now, find me a team in the NBA that does. There isn't one, newsflash, right? But it especially hurts Boston. Trading away Robert Williams, I think, affects them in a very negative way to be able to defend the teams like Philly and Milwaukee, who we kind of assume are and even Cleveland to an extent, right, with their 2 big men that they run out there. So while getting more backcourt depth or better backcourt players, however you want to look at it, right, with Marcus Smart leaving and Jrue Holiday coming in and Brogdon going out, but Derek White taking a larger role in the offense. While their backcourt, I think, is going to be fine, their front court is going to give them issues, I believe. They're going to be fine in the regular season. That's not going to be a problem. But I think everybody is looking towards like a May matchup of Milwaukee and Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals. And how that is going to play out will be the most interesting storyline in the East, I believe, outside of probably Philadelphia.
Yeah, I think the other thing too is like Al Horford's not getting any younger.
Mm-hmm.
That's a concern too, right? Like they have huge variability with their front court too, even with the players they expect to be contributing. Kristaps, he's had one healthy year, like fundamentally, like, and it was a great year last year.
Yeah,
I mean, great.
He was really good.
Yeah, he I went and saw him once against the Mavericks, and he was the best player on the floor. And the Mavericks have some good players.
One or two.
And he was the best player on the floor in that game. And I was like, man, I haven't seen him do that like since the Knicks. I mean, that was like the first time I had seen him do that. But like, you hope that's the guy you're getting. They're really betting on that because, like, I don't know if you can bet on O'Shea Brissett. I like O'Shea Brissett. He's not bad, but. Is he a playoff guy? Probably not. He's like a 7-point per game guy on the Pacers. Yeah. Like, he could be some. They did sign Wenyen Gabriel, which like maybe that helps him out a little bit because he got time with the Lakers in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Luke Cornett probably not doing anything for you. Like, I don't know. It's they do have Delano Banton though, so we do have to consider that. My guy.
Yes, he is.
The real Ben Simmons.
The real Ben, who made 10 free throws in a row in practice the other day, by the way.
Yeah,
so.
he looks good.
I hope
he's back.
I agree. I think it'd be awesome if he did. I was going to say that I've never even made 10 free throws in a row, and I was career like 78% free throw shooter. So whatever, casual, not a big deal. Slight flex. All right. I guess we can do splash or trash now. Do you splash or trash this trade for the Celtics?
I think you have to splash it. I think I talk about this probably every time a superstar trade happens. It's about increasing the positive variability among your team scenarios, right? Because if you are a championship contender in the NBA world, that's all that matters is winning it, right? Like if you're a GM, that's your job. If you're a coach, that's your job when you have a championship contender. There's like 6 of them, but only one wins, right?
Yep.
So does it help you to hold steady and do nothing or keep what you have and be like, we're still a contender, or increase your odds of winning a championship by say 5%? Because that's probably what it was, like five or less percent, like probably not even 5, I would guess. But also like drop your chance of a successful team at all, like 20%. So
yeah.
Hey Gary.
Oh, what's
hey,
up,
boys?
buddy? Welcome.
What's going on, man?
What's up?
How you doing?
Day. So far, so good, man. How are you?
Good. I was trying not to jump in the middle of a thought there, Ryan. So I hope I didn't interrupt you.
No, it's okay. I was talking about team building, cringe stuff that no one wants to hear about.
Hey, we love it. We love
it. To your percentage stat there, Ryan, after the Damian Lillard trade, Milwaukee jumped to the betting favorite in Vegas to win the NBA Finals. After the Jrue trade, Boston pulled even. They're now both at plus 380 to win the NBA Finals going into next season.
Yeah, who do you like better?
Probably Milwaukee. They have. I know that we like to talk about how Jason Tatum is a great player, and he is, and Jrue Holiday is a point of attack defender, and that's true. And Jaylen Brown, for take him for what he is, right? And obviously a great player, but Milwaukee has been there. Middleton, Lopez, Giannis, they've been there, and I just trust Dame more than I trust the guys that Boston have in a big playoff type atmosphere. Even with Tatum having scored 50 in a game last year in the second round of the playoffs, I just believe in Dame more than I do in these Boston teams or the Boston players.
I think you have to see Tatum be a better facilitator, right? Like Marcus Smart, probably a roughly equal facilitator to Holiday, but I think that's like a big step for them too, without a traditional guy to set people up. Like Tatum, I think had 5.5 assists last year, so it's not like he's like for a wing, he has quite a lot of assists and moves the ball well. But I'd like to see that get to like 7. I think that would be big, especially with how talented the starting lineup is around him. I think that'd be big for their offense.
Yeah. So Gary, since you're here, buddy, do you have thoughts on this Jrue Holiday trade? I'll run through the details one more time just so you can get you spun up. I know you probably know, but so the Blazers get Robert Williams III, they get Malcolm Brogdon, they get a 2024 first from Golden State via Boston, and they get a 2029 unprotected first from Boston.
Yeah, I'm going to welch on something I said last week, right, when we talked about this in terms of where Jrue would go. And I speculated I thought maybe Boston would be the place to go because I thought he kind of fit that roster and what they really needed, right? I thought they lost some of what they get back with Jrue Holiday, with Marcus Smart. I think he's a better offensive player than Marcus Smart. I do agree with Ryan. I think facilitation-wise, Marcus Smart can be comparable. I think I would take Jrue a little bit, even from just a pure point guard standpoint. But then you look at how steady Jrue Holiday is compared to Marcus Smart. Smart can get you buckets, and he can get real streaky, real hot, get hot late in a game and make a difference down the stretch of a game. But there are also times when he just disappears offensively because he's chucking and throwing up bricks and whatnot. And Marcus Smart's always kind of just been that guy. He was that guy at Oklahoma State. He's been that guy in the NBA. Where I think Boston ended up losing me a little bit on this trade, I said last week if they made this trade with Jrue that I would emphatically call them the favorites to win the East and make it to the NBA Finals. I don't like that they gave up Robert Williams. And I don't know who they have that replaces that or who they can go get. I don't think they're done necessarily, but I look at like the lineup is currently constituted. Who's your starting five? Are you just going to go really small? Are you going to have KP at the 5? You're going to put Tatum at the 4, Jrue at the 1. You've got Brown at the 2, and then what do you know? I don't know where you fit all these pieces together and make what we would consider maybe a traditional starting lineup in the NBA. Now I know today's NBA is anything but traditional, right? There are so many different ways that teams are constructed, but we've seen where teams can really flounder and struggle, a la Miami against Denver in the finals last year, where they just didn't have anybody that could stack up against Jokic, right? Bam did fine on the offensive end, but really struggled on the defensive end, and they didn't have anybody else that could really make up for that. I think they're really going to miss Robert Williams and what he brings to that team. I think if they had been able to make this trade without giving him up, I stick by what I said last week, and I love this trade for Boston. I like this trade still for Boston. I think that it's a move I expected them to make, and I think it does upgrade their roster in totality. But I think from a matchup standpoint, they're really going to struggle with Milwaukee, right? Yeah. I mean, just looking at it from who's 1 and 2 right now in the East, they're going to struggle with Milwaukee, I believe, because they don't have anybody that can really match up with Brook Lopez, and who's covering Giannis? Like, they're going to have to kind of tag team that. I think Robert Williams gives you some of both of that, right? Mm-hmm. So until I see the next kind of straw drop or the next pin drop for them, I'm gonna say I like but don't love this trade after seeing it completed, despite how much I thought it was going to make them better prior to the trade. The details are really what lost it for me in some sense, right? I think that I really like what Robert Williams could have done for this roster. You put KP at the 4, leave Tatum at swing, and you've got Brown and Jrue potentially a starting 5. I think that's maybe the best starting 5 in the East, right? But now I just don't know who you've got. That 5th guy in the starting rotation, who is it? Are you just going to go really small? I don't know.
So last week we did our Atlantic Division preview, which includes Boston, and I gave out – what's that?
Not Metropolitan.
Not Metropolitan. Not anymore. So our projected starting lineup for Boston last week at this time was Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Kristaps Porzingis, and then either Al Horford or Robert Williams. Well, now that switches, right? So you run Derek White at the 1, Jrue at the 2, Jaylen at the 3, Tatum at the 4, and then you have a decision to make, like you brought up. Do you play Kristaps at the 5, or do you bring him off the bench, even though you signed him to a massive extension, which we're going to talk about in the Wizards portion of our Southeast Division preview? Yep. So you make the decision: do you play KP at the 5, or do you play 42-year-old Al Horford out there at the 5? My lean is that they probably play Horford at the 5, like they've done for so many years, to keep that continuity, and then they bring in KP to play a lot. He'll probably play more minutes than Al Horford. But Al Horford, I would assume, would start games for them at the 5.
I think you can, with Derek White too, I think you can maybe bring him off the bench quite a bit, especially during the regular season, depending on matchup, whatnot, and you run Jrue at the 1, Jaylen at the 2, Tatum at the 3, and you go a little more traditional. I don't think Horford is that guy that can really run the 5, but I think it gives you a little bit of lineup versatility with not a little, a lot, because I think Jrue and Derek White are very much interchangeable in terms of their ability to play the 1 and the 2. And if you can get Jaylen Brown to play that kind of 2-3 hybrid, I think you can survive. I just, like you said, who's going to play the 5? Is it going to be Kristaps, and you're going to put him in there and have him banging with big bodies all night?
Yeah.
You don't want that. You brought him in to be a guy that can get you 25 a night and or 20 probably with this roster, get you 20 a night and be a help defender. You don't want him banging with big bodies all night. So
yeah, for sure.
I get your challenge, right? Who is it? Horford, and then is Kristaps coming off the bench?
I don't know. They gave up assets for him and gave him an extension. Right. How do you justify that as a GM?
You saw out that trade to bring him in and then gave him all that money. I lean a little more toward we may see Derek White come off the bench more often than not. And if they're going to go with Horford at the 5, then I think that's what we'll probably see is Jrue, Jaylen, Tatum, Kristaps, and Horford, or whoever ends up the 5, right? That might be the starting 5, and then Derek White gets a lot of minutes off the bench because he can play his size allows him to play 1 through 3, right? Against most lineups, not all lineups, but most.
For sure. Yeah. So, final thoughts. I think we all kind of Ryan splashed it. Gary said that he liked it, didn't love it, and I kind of agree. I would slightly splash it. Right. I wish that. So obviously, 2020 hindsight, right? Boston was willing to make a move this offseason. I wish that they had made more of a move to go get a traditional point guard. Jrue and Derek White are not traditional ones. Jrue is a much better off-ball guard than he is on-ball on the offensive side of the court. I wish for the Boston sake, and I'm not a Boston fan, but I obviously am a huge Tatum fan, and I like Porzingis, you know. I wish that they had gone out and gotten someone that was a traditional pass-first kind of point guard, similar to what Washington did this offseason, which is a lovely transition, if I do say so myself. We are here this evening to preview the Southeast Division, which, for those of you who do not know off the top of your head, includes Miami, Atlanta, Washington, Orlando, and Charlotte. So, similar to last week, I will go over the transactions that we had in the offseason. I'll get the boys' opinions, whether we splash or trash, and I'm introducing a new feature this week. It's not something crazy, but for anyone that listens to Gary and I pod on Tuesday, we talk about gambling a lot. So I'm going to give you guys the odds that these teams have right now on FanDuel to win their division. We can kind of say whether we agree. We can include it in the splash or trash, right? So let's kick things off, right? First off, Miami Heat. They were in the news a lot this offseason, specifically for not getting the Damian Lillard deal done, which, 90-year-old Pat Riley, who knows if he still has it or not, I lean towards yes on that one. Last year, they finished 44-38, won the division. They drafted Jaime Jaquez, 18 overall, out of UCLA, a kid who's a little older, but is a little more NBA ready than some of the guys you see in the first round. Victor Oladipo picked up his player option for 1 year, $9.5 million. He was subsequently traded, but he still picked up the option. Seems like he wanted to be there. Let's see. Orlando Robinson signed a 2-year, $4 million deal. Josh Richardson was kind of one of their big signings, right? 2 years, $6 million. They signed Thomas Bryant, a Wizards legend, Thomas Bryant, to a 2-year, $5.5 million deal. Then they re-signed Kevin Love to a 2-year, almost $8 million deal, which I thought was a little strange, but whatever. He wanted to be there. They wanted him there. They traded for him last year, or they signed him after his buyout from Cleveland. Big losses. Udonis Haslem retired. Locker room guy, 20 years there in South Beach. Not a bad life.
Not a bad life at all. Sit on the end of the bench for 82 nights a year and
win a couple rings.
South Beach.
Yeah. Max Strus was traded off away to Cleveland in a deal. Gabe Vincent left a free agency, signed with the Lakers. Excuse me. And last year's draft pick, Nikola Jovic, they picked up his team option. So projected starting lineup going into the next year, we have Kyle Lowry, Tyler Hero, Josh Richardson, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and they're currently listed at minus 195 to win the Southeast Division. Ryan, we'll go to you first, my guy. Splash or trash for this Miami Heat offseason?
I don't feel like I should have to answer this. I've made it known how I feel about their offseason.
Mm-hmm.
As a wise man once said, if the Miami Heat's offseason have no haters, then I'm dead. Because I hate it. If that wasn't obvious.
Are you in your emotional state like Jimmy Butler?
Jimmy Butler.
I definitely am.
Panic at the elbow.
My hair is growing out, so I guess I could do that. Straighten it and cause some problems. Yeah, I have to.
Yeah, there you go. Get it, Bentley. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to do the bangs. Yeah.
Got to paint your nails black and all that.
That's a pretty good look. You can pull it off, surprisingly.
Jimmy B. Eat World.
Yeah, I'm gonna trash it.
I can't see anything.
Yeah, I've made it be known 5 or 6 times now that I haven't liked their offseason. I just the narrative of their offseason doesn't make a lot of sense to me. it seems like they maneuvered to make certain deals that just never happened. And I think you have to trash when that happens. When you go all in and all you have is a pair. Sometimes you lose to just two pair. Because that is better, and that seems to be what happened. I think they really wanted to bring in a superstar to bring in with their other two main guys in Butler and Adebayo, and just they couldn't add any more money because of that, right? They're trying to set it up. They can't sign the guys that are rotational pieces. I one of my least favorite off seasons. Are they still the favorite in that division? Yeah, that division's not super strong though. So, but like they're nearing the end. This team, I don't think is going to be good for that much longer, if it as currently constituted. So, not only are they now treading water, they're barely treading water and slowly sinking, and that's a bad spot to be in.
Are you accounting for like the 2 or 3 undrafted guys that they're inevitably going to bring into training camp and make it to superstars?
They'll be playoff contributors.
Yeah, I think you're forgetting about those guys who we don't know yet.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. I'm like, it's hard to like rail against their scouting department. But what I will say, if their scouting was that good, they would have drafted those guys.
Fair.
Because I trade into the second round and pick up a guy who I thought was going to be in my playoff rotation every day of the week. You can buy those for money.
Yeah.
Now, maybe they view that as we're the only people that know about these guys, but I don't believe that. I think a lot of that's luck. I'm not saying that they aren't doing something right. They probably are, but I think a lot of that is luck.
Because they've been wrong on some of those guys before.
Oh, 100%. They've been wrong more often than right.
Yeah. I think specifically to the $70 million Tyler Johnson deal that they gave out. It's like, oof.
Yeah, who looked like a contributor for a little while, but not great. I do love Jovic, though. I'm a big Jovic fan. As y'all know, I buy his cards. I've shown them. I like Jovic, mostly because I hope people on eBay just think it's Jokic and pay the price.
They do look alike in one distinct way.
It's like, I'm not much of a basketball fan. I'm pretty sure that's right.
Yeah. That's like the old tight end Robert Griffin, who for about 2 years, everybody was mistaking him for somebody else.
Yeah. Well, Eastern European names, it's like understandable.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right, so we're trashing this offseason, yeah? All right, wonderful. Gary, how do we feel, brother?
I'm with Ryan. Ryan, you hit a lot of the points that lead me to this, same kind of conclusion. I'm not just trashing the fact that they had a good offseason. Like, I'm trashing their entire offseason. And for a lot of the reasons that Ryan already mentioned, right? They postured and put themselves in position. They had their eyes on the prize for Dame Lillard, right? And that was their entire offseason plan. They let Gabe Vincent walk, most likely because they plan on bringing in Dame. They moved Strus because they needed to clear up money and cap and room and roster and all that. And then they whiffed. And I don't know, what went on in the phone calls, what went on behind closed doors or whatever. But the reports we've seen, Miami just wasn't putting together apparently enough of a package, right? And Portland kept making that very clear that they weren't just going to accept whatever because Dame wanted to go to Miami. So for me, whatever Riles was doing, if he just thought he had all the leverage because Dame had said publicly that he would only play in Miami, he got the wool pulled over his eyes, basically. Got the okey doke, and Portland said, "I see your pair, and I raise you 3 of a kind." And they went out and made a 3-team trade to move Dame Lillard and get Jrue Holiday back and get Ayton and all that. And then they made another move, right? So Miami just got left out. I look at a 44-win team last year that they made the run to the finals, and everybody, I think, still has that in their minds. But I don't look at this Southeast Division and say, like, any of these teams are going to finish above 500, right? One of them probably has to because they're going to beat up on some of the other Southeast teams and eventually kind of put their heads above water. But This team, in my eyes, got demonstrably worse this offseason because of they lost contributors. Martin left too, and I just who's going to pick up that slack that they lost to Gabe Vincent? It's not 55-year-old Kyle Lowry, who's got a lot of miles on his tires as well, in addition to being in the league forever. So where do they find these 44, 45 wins to repeat in this division? I don't know. And that minus 195 feels really heavy to me in terms of how heavy of a favorite they should or shouldn't be. I look at Orlando, who I think is with another year under their belts, a lot of that talent's going to start to rise to the top. Atlanta has always kind of just hung around. Is Trae Young going to play a full season healthy? Maybe. I'm not buying that they're that heavy of favorites. Do I think they're probably still rightfully favorites? Sure, but like not for almost 2-1 juice, right? I'm looking at maybe they're a 10% juice team, right? It's 110, and they're just the favorite just because this team feels like they got a lot worse. And Jimmy's not a regular season guy who's just going to carry a team in the regular season. And Bam is who he is, but you can't do it all with one guy, and not at that position either, right? Trash this offseason, trash the Heat coming up. Hawkins was a good draft pick if you had filled out your roster and didn't need a guy who was eventually going to move into like a high ceiling role. Yeah, Miami's they're worse to me. Give me 41 wins and they might win this division at 40. Right? I'm not betting minus 195 with this team. I'm just not.
I agree. I will also trash the splash season. Trash the splash season, boys.
That's
trash the off season. Yeah, right. I have a couple of specific reasons. I believe that the Dame, kind of the failure to acquire Dame, ended up being a double whammy loss for them. Not even because of where Dame landed. When you think of Miami and you think of their offseason attempts, they go big game hunting anytime possible, right? And it worked with LeBron James and Chris Bosh.
Mm-hmm.
But they struck out twice with Kevin Durant, and now they have struck out with Dame. Granted, that was a trade, so it was a little different, but it almost felt like a free agency signing, right? And so this is the double whammy part of it, right? So they didn't get Dame, and they're not going to get Giannis now. Gary, you and I had talked multiple times on this pod about how Giannis had been positioning himself through the media to be like, hey, if Milwaukee's not going in a direction where I think we can win, I'm willing to look elsewhere. And I think Miami heard that and is like, hey, we have an opportunity to go big game hunting once again whenever Giannis comes up on the market. And now I think they believe that I believe that they're out of the Giannis sweepstakes because Giannis doesn't seem like he's going to go anywhere now, right? If he does, he can now. Right? He has no reason to, unless for some weird reason this Dame thing does not work out. Yeah. Now, I will say that I feel like Miami probably shifts focus in the front office, right? Obviously, the team is focused on the court. Front office, they probably shift their entire focus to Embiid now at this point. That's my guess. Yeah. Embiid is probably the next domino to fall, right? Embiid and Butler have a history. They played together. They played very well together in Philly. However this Harden thing plays out, and I have no idea what's going to happen. I'm open to literally anything happening with James Harden at this point in Philly. I think that Miami has to be solely focused on bringing in future Team USA center Joel Embiid down to South Beach. But who knows?
Yeah, for sure. Hey, Ryan, real quick, you've mentioned Harden there, Bentley. Ryan, I read a report this week that said Houston wanted to bring in Harden, and he said he was going to chase a scoring title. Mm-hmm. And they said no, thank you.
I mean, he probably could.
Yeah,
if you gave him the reins, he probably could still get a scoring title if that's your whole goal.
Yeah,
probably not what you want to do with that team, but
That's a good one.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, that was a wild one. I don't know. Media day is great because it's the first time they get to ask like, hey, we heard all these rumors. What was up with that? It's like, yeah, I don't like that guy. Yeah, He came in.
Well,
That's not what he said, but yes,
Yeah.
basically, it's like I don't play that game. Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think Ime played a large role in Harden not going to Houston.
Oh yeah, I think he played the majority of the role. Yeah, I think so for sure.
I have one final reason that I trashed this offseason, and it's because of the Heat culture jerseys that they announced on Twitter. Those things are awful.
terrible.
Awful.
I haven't seen them now.
They literally say Heat culture on the front of them. It's just like
so
Times New Roman. It's bad.
Oh yeah, not
Yeah.
Remember the England uniforms in the World Baseball Classic?
Yeah.
They're worse than that.
Copy paste. Friggin' yeah. They're real bad.
Yeah,
All right.
not amazing.
So we have all trashed the offseason for the Heat.
You played the Jimmy video yet? Did you play it before again?
No, I did not play the Jimmy video.
It's Jimmy B. He's in his emotional state.
What's this? Yeah. This is my emotional state. I'm one with my emotions. So this is what you get. Yeah.
This is what you get.
What's most impressive about that to me is he was immediately back to normal the next day of practice.
I know.
Love that.
He
Love
just
that.
put on the show for the media.
Yep. I love Jimmy Butler. He's so good.
Well, yeah, what dreads last year, right?
Yes. Yes.
And then
Love
changed them the
dreads.
next day at practice.
All right, so we have gone 3 for 3 on trashing the offseason for Miami. Let's move on down to the Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks finished 41-41, an exact even. Actually, fun fact, they were never more than 2 games over or under 500 last year throughout the entire regular season, which is wild.
What a season of meh.
Yes, just absolutely meh. They also had a relatively quiet offseason, all right? Hear me out. Lou Williams retired. Tough. He's hanging out at King of
Wings every day.
Yeah, whatever. What is Ace of Spades? Nope. King of Diamonds? Queen of Diamonds? What is the club there? Whatever.
Yeah.
Shout out Rick Ross.
Yeah.
Wingstop, baby. Lemon pepper. All right, so they drafted Kobe Buffkin 15th overall and Seth Lundy 46th overall. They extended DeJounte Murray on $114 million for 4 years. They also signed Wesley Matthews, probably a sneaky good pickup for them, for 1 year, $3.2 million. Projected starting lineup going into next season is going to be Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, DeAndre Hunter, Sadiq Bey, who probably will be supplanted by Jalen Carter, and then Clint Capella, who finally is on an expiring deal after what seems like forever. They're coming in at plus 220 to win this division. Gary, let's go to you first this time, buddy. What do we think? Splash or trash this offseason?
I mean, doesn't this offseason feel like just an extension of the regular season for them? 500 basketball during the regular season is, and as you pointed out, never 2 games above or below, more than 2 games above or below. I'm going to go slightly on the splash side because I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt on something that I can't provide any evidence to say like this is how Atlanta operates, but I feel like this offseason was an extension of the John Collins trade, and it feels like they're kind of posturing for what's the next move, right? And you mentioned there's Embiid, there's Giannis potentially, right? Could they ever attract him to Atlanta? But we're talking like, are they going to find a superstar to really put next to Trae Young? Because for all intents and purposes, right, John Collins is good. He's not a superstar, right? DeAndre Hunter, another guy who's good. He's kind of a two-way guy, but he's not a superstar. Is Atlanta posturing for it? I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt because it feels like those trade exceptions, the one that they got especially for Collins, the expiring contract of Clint Capella, and some of the other moves that they've kind of made over the last couple of years, they may be looking to kind of pair something with Trae Young to rebuild there in Atlanta and maybe try to capture or recapture some of the Al Horford days when they had a pretty solid roster and were winning a lot of games. I can't point to anything that tells me that this is what Atlanta's doing, but I have to be on one side of the fence because this is such a fence riding offseason for this team that I'm going to go slightly splash because they do now have a lot of roster versatility or roster maneuverability. Whether or not they use it, maybe in a year or two, I'm going to look back and say, well, I'm a fucking idiot. I should have just assumed it was Atlanta and that they were going to do this anyway. But they have a lot of maneuverability, so I'm going to slightly splash this one. I think that this is probably a 500 team. Maybe they're the ones that win the division at 41 wins.
They hit 41 last year. May as well do it again, right?
Yeah.
I did make a mistake. I said Jalen Carter may take the starting 4 spot. It is Jalen Johnson. And as you can see from my lovely Duke jersey hanging behind me, I'm very ashamed that I did not remember the name of just an absolute Duke legend who played a COVID-shortened year and did not get to play in the NCAA tournament. So, Jalen, I do apologize for that. Also, I forgot to mention – well, I didn't forget to mention because it happened during the season last year, but John Collins has been traded to Utah and is playing in their lineup now.
Yep.
I believe we will – I don't know if I was on the pod when you guys did that division. I have not done that division, but we may get to that at some point before the season. So, that being said, we have a slight splash from Gary.
Slight splash. And a side note, Dayton probably has a national title if that year doesn't get shortened. That team was fucking unbelievable.
Ain't no stopping Obi Toppin.
Yeah, dude. That team was fucking unbelievable. And it was a down year for like a couple of ACC powerhouses and some of the other big schools. I think they walk away with that title.
I agree. All right, Brian. Splash or trash this offseason for Atlanta?
Yeah, this one is pretty middle of the road. I agree with Gary about that. I also agree, looking at the deals this team has as far as salary, they do have salaries in different tiers. Like they got some low salaries, they got some mid salaries, they got some obvious big ones with Murray and Trey. I think that is good for maneuverability. If you want to make a trade, it makes it a lot easier for salary matching. So they have set themselves up pretty well for that with some prospects that people could want. You know, the AJ Griffins of the world, the Kobe Buffkins. And I really like this team, actually. I like this team more than I like Miami. I think they're in a better position than Miami is. Are they better right now than Miami? I think there's an argument to be made that they are, and they just need to figure out how to play. I think it's maybe more of a coaching issue than anything. And Trey is an underrated player. Saying all that, I think I have to trash it because they haven't actually made the move that I think they're setting up for. So I won't add much more to that. I agree with Gary's points. I just think I can't splash it if they set themselves up and then aren't able to do it right. I said that about the trade with Boston and with Milwaukee. It's like Miami wasn't able to make those trades, so I have to trash it. Same for Atlanta. If Atlanta at the trade deadline makes a move for a disgruntled star, then we'll have a different conversation because I do think they're set up to do that. And I like this team. I think they're an above 500 team. They're like 9-10 deep. They're pretty decent, especially guard, and they got a lot of young guys who could be better next year. So I like this team.
Cool. So we have a couple splashes.
No, I trashed.
No, you trashed. My apologies, because they didn't actually make the move. The setup for the move that they
didn't make the assumption I made.
Right.
I know I'm being nice and said I like their team, but this is their off season.
Fair. I will also trash the off season. I have further thoughts, but I'll state why I trash it. I don't think this team got better in the off season. I don't. I think they're probably the exact same team going into next year that they were when they finished the year. Right. Maybe AJ Griffin takes a leap. That'd be cool. Maybe Hunter finally places his potential. Who knows? But to me, it's they're running it back. That's all they're doing. They're running it back. However, if anyone remembers 2015, there was a 1 seed in the Eastern Conference that played in the city of Atlanta. And they had at the time, superstar, I guess he was maybe a 4. I don't remember the exact lineup, who went by the name of Al Horford. We just got done talking about Jrue Holiday playing in Boston and how that team needs front court depth. I very specifically mentioned that Clint Capella is on an expiring deal. There were rumors in the offseason, would Boston sign Jaylen Brown to this massive contract, or would they do a sign-in trade? We also brought to light how Boston Celtics do not really have a true point guard. Turns out Atlanta might have 2 of them. So, tea leaves being what they are, boys, could we see a deal that sends Jaylen Brown to Atlanta for DeJounte Murray going back to Boston and I have not run this through the trade machine. I don't know what kind of picks or assets or money we're looking at. But imagine a world where DeJounte Murray swaps with Jaylen Brown and Al Horford swaps with Clint Capella, and there's some picks going back and forth. Do we think that that's a good trade for both sides? Potentially. It brings front court depth to Boston. It brings a true point guard to Boston. You shift Jrue to the – well, Jrue would stay at the 2. Probably you shift Derek White to maybe the 3. You play Capella. He's a good defensive guy. Good matchup for Milwaukee. And then you put Jaylen Brown and Trae Young on the same team, on the same court, and let them do their thing. Any takers? No? Ryan's giving me a no?
I don't love that trade for Atlanta.
Okay.
I hate it for Boston.
Do you?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just throwing it out there. Boston needs the front court. Capella's on expiring. Maybe Jaylen Brown starts the year cold. Maybe Joe Maz doesn't have him playing a proper role. Who knows?
Ryan, I'm assuming you believe in Jrue and Derek White being able to kind of tag team the point guard position in Boston then.
I just think trading Jaylen Brown is a mistake. I think
that's fair.
I think he's like maybe the most valuable archetype in the NBA currently. Him and Jason Tatum.
Is that the always go right archetype?
Hey man.
I'm kidding.
Hey, all the way to the bank.
All the way to the bank. That's true. He goes right all the way to the bank.
He's the one that all these fucking kids in high school when their coaches are telling them, strap your right hand to your hip and only dribble with your left. They're going to say, Jaylen Brown just got that bag, coach.
Yep. That's fair. Hey, look, it was just an idea. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not throwing a prediction. I was just curious what the temperature of the room felt like.
It's not the worst thing in the world. Like, I could see why teams would do that if Brown is super disgruntled. Like, I could see it.
I would love the Clint Capella fit in Boston, though. Right?
Yeah.
I think if that's the move, if they're comfortable with the roster as currently constructed and they're going to have that good rotation at 1 through 4 with all the bodies that we've already talked about, and they can throw Clint Capella at the 5 position and maybe just kind of patchwork whatever behind him. If it moves Horford, so be it. I do like that. If that's a move that Boston's going to make, I'd certainly like that. I don't think Boston's going to be in as bad a shape at the 1 as maybe you both do. I like Jrue Holiday as a guy that can be that facilitator. I think he maybe is more natural at the 2, but I think he's a fine facilitator on offense. And then I think Derek White can do a little bit of that. So I don't worry as much about Boston at the point guard or guard position in general as I really do at the 5. Losing Rob Williams, I just can't get over that. I think maybe that's where I'm stuck.
I think Derek White is their 1. Like, I don't think Jrue is brought there to be the point guard.
I think that's fair. But I don't think that Derek White's going to I don't think it's going to be like a true. They're not going to ask Derek White to be a true point guard, right? I think you're going to see a lot more of like what Golden State had with Livingston and Steph, right? It's kind of both together. It's one brings it up, the other one's an outlet, that sort of thing. And I just don't think that they're going to have a true point guard there. That's fair. And I could be completely maybe Derek White does play the 1 all year, and it's Jrue. It's Jrue and Jaylen trying to figure out the 2-3 rotation and whatnot. But
yeah,
we'll see.
I'd be shocked if Jrue doesn't play the 1 most of the year.
All right. Fair enough. All right, so we got 2 trashes and a splash for Atlanta. We are now moving on to a team that is near and dear to a few of our hearts here in this here call this evening, and one who is near and dear to his heart just by sheer proximity.
Yeah.
The Washington Wizards, boys.
The Midzards.
Yes. Yeah. Haven't won 50 games in, 30 years maybe. John Wall, had he stayed healthy, and maybe his jersey on the wall instead of JJ Redick, who knows?
They'd have just as many championships.
Okay, he was the best point guard in the NBA for 3 years.
Definitely.
In a league that included Steph, Russ, and Chris Paul. So
He was
Calm
never
down
the
there.
best point guard in the NBA. We've
He was
established
for
this.
3 years. My stats, I've been over it many, many times. I don't know how many more times I have to go over it. And that's me talking about a Kentucky player. I don't do that. Except for Boogie Cousins. All
Boogie
right.
doesn't count, though. He's the exception.
That is fair. That is very true. All right, so Washington last year, they finished 35-47. They very clearly in the back half of the year were not trying to win, which even when they were trying to win didn't matter all that much. Probably the most notable departure from this team was the Bradley Beal trade, right? They traded him to Phoenix, and in return they got Wizards legend Chris Paul. They also brought in Landry Shamet. As a player we talked about a whole lot, they also traded away Kristaps Porzingis. It was part of a 3-team trade. They ended up with Tyus Jones, who, fun fact about Tyus Jones, I went back and read the numbers. For the last 7 seasons in the NBA, he finished, if he did not lead, he finished in the top 3 of assist-to-turnover ratio for the entire NBA for the last 7 years.
Very efficient player.
Yeah. Is that good? Somebody tell me if that's good or not. I'm not sure. Yeah. So, as a result of the CP3 trade, we in turn moved him to Golden State, where we got Jordan Poole back, Ryan Rollins, and Patrick Baldwin Jr. We also fired Tommy Shepard, who is the GM. We hired a new GM, Will Dawkins, who had been in the front office or in some capacity in Oklahoma City since 2008, including last year he was their president of basketball operations, working directly for Sam Presti. So it brings a little bit of pedigree with him from Oklahoma. We signed Kyle Kuzma, finally, to a 4-year, $90 million deal with $12 million of incentives, bringing it up to a potential $102 million. We also we picked up the team option for Coach Wes Unseld Jr. for an extra year through next year, I believe. We drafted Bilal Coulibaly at 7 overall and Tristan Vukcevic at 57 overall. So our projected starting lineup going into next year's season: Tyus Jones, Jordan Poole, Corey Kispert, Kyle Kuzma, and Daniel Gafford. We're coming in at plus 1,000 to win this division next year. Where did we go first last time? Gary? All right, Ryan. Talk to me, buddy. What do we think? Splash or trash this offseason for Washington?
All right, I'll be fast. I'm splashing it. They finally did what they needed to do. They got off the Beal contract. They're starting to rebuild. They got some pieces I like. I'm a big fan of Avdia, as I've stated many times on this podcast. I loved Ryan Rollins in the draft. I thought he was a late first-round pick. I think he went in the second round. I liked him a lot. I think Patrick Baldwin Jr. has the pedigree to potentially be something. And I think, you got to let Johnny Davis run out there and try his best. I think this team's got pieces to tank even more. And I don't really think their starting lineup is that bad. And they got some maneuverability. A lot of people think they're the worst team in the NBA. It wouldn't shock me if they end up with the worst record, because that's what they want to do probably. But I like the moves they had to make, because this team was never winning anything as constituted. It was a bunch of middling guys, and you can't win with Kristaps as your number one option. Even and Beal should have been, and he didn't. He wasn't himself, wasn't healthy. This team was not going places. It was built for John Wall, right? That's the idea. This is still the remnants of the John Wall team, and it's good that they've moved on. It sucks for fans because that want to win, but I think it'll be fun to watch the Koulibalys and those guys see how they develop.
So we have a splash from Ryan. Gary, what do we think, buddy?
Yeah, early in the offseason, if you'd asked me this, I'd have said trash, because it didn't feel like – they felt like a rudderless ship, to be honest. But as the offseason progressed, as the draft progressed, as we get closer to the season, I'm on the splash side of this, because they finally did what they needed to do, right? It's either we've got to find a way to bring enough talent in to compete with Bradley Beal, or we've got to realize that we're not going to be able to piece this thing together, and we've got to bottom out. And this feels like a team that is going to bottom out unintentionally, because it feels like they went and did a good thing in terms of bringing in really good high ceiling talent via the draft, but also the young guys that are still on the roster. They've paved the way that those guys are going to get a ton of playing time. There's no one standing in the way of the young guys now. Kispert and Koulibaly, especially out of the draft, and Avdia, and just, on down the line with the young guys. They're going to have as much playing time as they want. I like Tyus Jones as well because he feels like a guy that's going to, one, be able to run an offense in a meaningful way so that the young guys can learn how to play that way instead of just kind of being out there. We see a lot of young teams that they just kind of throw the ball out there and they're like, hey, go play, and we're going to try to figure out which one of you is good, right? It doesn't feel that way if you're starting Tyus Jones at the point guard position. The other kind of flip side of that is he also feels like he might be at the deadline a movable piece to bring in more assets, right? More draft capital, maybe even another young piece or something along those lines. I also love the draft capital that we've got in future years. We've got a bunch of swaps. We've got a bunch of protected picks of our own that are going out the door, so we're not going to give up lottery picks in some of these swaps. We've got, the ability to swap with a team in Phoenix that it feels like they've got kind of a 2-year window. So those picks after this window closes, we may end up getting some good picks, right? And if health goes the wrong way for Phoenix, which we know everybody there that they've got, with the exception of maybe Book, has some injury history. And if it bottoms out there, we've got some higher picks from that as well. So I like it. They won me over as the season progressed. I know I was very adamant early on in this that it just didn't feel like Washington knew what they were trying to do. But as the offseason progressed, it felt a lot more cohesive and like they're building a lot more toward, the end goal of we've got to find a couple superstars, right? Because that's what the NBA is all about. And this right now, this roster as constituted and the assets that we have in the future feels like we've got an opportunity to potentially find those two superstars, which is what Wall and Beal were supposed to be, but health really never allowed that to happen.
Yeah. So we got 2 splashes already. I'm going to jump up board and I will also splash. I'm going to caveat my splash, however, with the statement that this is still a Washington franchise. So we splash it.
Find a way to fuck it up.
Yeah, like we splash it knowing full well that this is going to backfire somewhere. Like Kuzma may be a borderline all-star and will win 36 games and we'll have the 12th pick.
Right.
It's like,
fuck.
What are we doing, man? But so I agree to the points you have made a few times now on tonight and then in previous pods that this did feel like a rudderless ship, Gary.
Yeah.
Going into the offseason. And Ryan and I specifically, before we even had this platform, talked offline about what are the worst situations to be in for a front office. And consensusly, it was Portland and then it was Washington.
Yeah.
Because of the Dame thing, the deal that he was on, and then the Beal deal. And both of these front offices, I think, did as well as they probably could to get out from under those massive contracts that were weighing down their salary cap and withholding their team from being truly, truly bad, to where now I think both of these franchises are set up for success down the road. I do think Portland is probably a little further along because they got that number 2 or the number 3 overall pick. They got their future superstar. And Washington is counting on this team to win few enough games to get them in the position to where and again, as a college basketball guy, I hope that we don't have the first pick this year. I would love to have the first pick next year, right?
Yeah.
I would love to see a Cooper Flag come to Washington. It would be phenomenal. I would be ecstatic to have a guy like that come to Washington. But we're headed in the right direction, right? At least we have a vision set out in front of us where I think that this GM who's someone who has worked for Sam Presti, who we all have the utmost respect for as a front office guy. I mean, look at what he's done in Oklahoma City, right? We have a guy who learned from Sam Presti how to build a franchise the right way. And I think that we're heading in a good direction. So I'm going to splash it as well. I'm excited to watch this team. I hope we don't trade Tyus Jones for very obviously selfish reasons. I love watching Duke players in the NBA. And he was one of my favorite college players of all time playing at the university. But I think he's going to be a great one for this team. He's going to guide them in the right direction, help these young guys come along. and really give them the experience from a veteran standpoint of view that they need.
Yep.
All right, so we got 3 splashes.
Is anybody betting that line for them to win the division?
No, but I have another one I'm looking at. Yeah,
buddy.
That being said, we're going to move down to maybe my most exciting team in this division, personally. That is the Orlando Magic. They finished 34-48 last year. They hired Anthony Parker to be their new GM. He's been in the organization for a while. He was a scout for them. He was the G League GM for a little while. And last year, he was the assistant GM. And then when they let their GM go, they hired Anthony Parker to be their full-time GM. They drafted Anthony Black 6th overall. They drafted Jet Howard 11th overall, which I think we all kind of agreed was a slight reach for them, if I believe correctly. Don't hate the player, just didn't really love taking him that high.
Not really. Yeah.
They signed Joe Ingles to a 2-year, $22 million deal. They signed Mo Wagner, not Franz Wagner. They signed Mo Wagner to a $60 million deal. Franz will be getting a much larger deal than that here next offseason. And they also picked up speaking of Franz, picked up the team options to extend them for another year for Paolo, Jalen Suggs, and Franz Wagner. All rookie team extensions, very standard, just delaying the max contracts for those guys 1 season. Projected starting lineup going into next year. I thought this was a little strange, but they're going for it. Markelle Fultz, Gary Harris, Franz Wagner, Paolo, Wendell Carter Jr. And they're coming in at 27-1 to win this division next season. The Gary Harris part, starting at the 2, was the part that really confused it for me. Ryan knows this. I'm a big Jalen Suggs guy. He really won me over on that Final Four run that Gonzaga had. But I love two-sport athletes. He was Mr. Football in the state of Ohio. I love Jalen Suggs. Just personal preference. I think he should start. But, okay, let's go to you, man. What do we think, splash or trash? Or should we – let's address this question first, actually. Matchups should be close battles. If we're just speaking specifically within this division, right, I think we haven't gotten to Charlotte yet. They're probably not going to be competitive whatsoever. I think that the Orlando and Miami matchup, personally, is going to be one that's very intriguing, right? Orlando has a ton of size. They run out Franz, Wendell Carter, and Paolo. And Miami's a team that doesn't have a whole ton of size, right? They're going to run out Kevin Love and Bam. Those are not super huge dudes, as well as Kevin Love being limited defensively and not being super athletic. When you run out Franz and Paolo, they're going to be able to run circles offensively around Kevin Love. So that would probably be my matchup that I would pick to be the most closely contested. Do you guys have other thoughts or other matchups on that? Gary, you can go first.
I think it's a 3-horse race in the division. I think Miami, Atlanta, Orlando. I do think that you're probably right. Like the way those two teams stack up, that Miami and Orlando is probably going to be the more hotly contested of the two. Geographical, right? The state of Florida in common, but Atlanta I think is a sneaky team because of what Trey can do when Trey's right, assuming health. It's who covers Trey Young, right? And in the NBA, really, essentially, like who covers him when he's right. But yeah, I think you're right. Miami, Orlando feels like they're kind of nip tuck. There's strengths on one side that are weaknesses. Maybe not weaknesses, but aren't as strong on the other side. Whereas I think Orlando's size really is going to give a lot of teams problems. They're not just big, like they're long, like they're guys that are just so long and athletic that they're going to be problems. And in the Gary Harris thing, I agree with you. If they started Jalen Suggs over him, you're talking about like an absurdly long lineup, because Markelle Fultz is no slouch either at the point guard position. He's a big athletic guy too. So yeah, Miami Orlando feels like it's a pretty tight. I could see those two teams at the end of the season if Atlanta, doesn't assert themselves, if they're really kind of in the rebuild mode. But yeah, that one makes sense.
Ryan, how do we think?
Yeah, I think it's a 3-horse race over there. There's some individual matchups that are interesting. But yeah, I mean, I don't see this division being particularly interesting for championship contenders, but I do see it as a who's going to win the division relatively interesting. And you could have 3 playoff teams out of this division pretty easily, I think, near the bottom of the East.
Yeah, with the expanded plan for sure.
Yeah. All right, Gary, let's go back to you. Get a splash of trash from this offseason.
I'm gonna splash, and I'm leaning more towards splash because of the last two off seasons combined and what they continued with this off season. They have it feels like they have a very cohesive plan for what they want for this team. They want long, they want athletic, they want guys that have really high upside. The Banchero draft, that's what he is, right? He's an upside guy, long, plays longer than the positions he can play, good shooter. If Markelle Fultz ever gets close to being back, it just feels like every once in a while you get a flash from him, and then it's like, okay, where'd Markelle Fultz go? And then he kind of had you a little bit, and you're like, okay, is he figuring it out? If he ever gets there, I think he's a huge asset for this team because what he was at Washington he was unbelievable. Yeah. And then he gets injured, he goes to Philly, and they break him and turn him into this scared, skittish, gun shy basketball player. And the way he played at Washington, you can't be that. And that's not what Orlando needs. They need him to be that guy who's ready to pull the trigger and facilitate this offense. I do work the Gary Harris thing. I feel like it has to be them just saying we want that veteran in the starting lineup or something, because Jalen Suggs is a much better basketball player than Gary Harris, just point blank. He's a better basketball player. He brings a really junkyard defensive mentality as well, that I think goes a long way for them. Because Fultz is not that, right? Suggs can guard the best ball handler on the other team and gives you that X factor. But I love this talent coming together, and they feel like in the front office that they've got a great plan in place and they are executing on it. And this offseason was an extension of that. I would not be surprised. What'd you say the odds were for them to win this division?
They are plus 2,700.
I wouldn't be afraid to throw some ducats at that, man.
It's my favorite bet on this division.
That's a lot of juice for a team that I think is going to be close. I don't know that maybe they don't get over the hump and win it, but they feel really close in terms of competing in a bad division. Ryan already said it, right? None of these teams are going to compete for a title. So why not Orlando? Plus 2,700 to win this division. Throw some ducats at it, man. This is a young team that could come together for them this year, right? They're close. Maybe not this year, maybe next year, but it feels like they could come together this year and be a really fucking scary team.
Yeah,
with the size and athleticism they have.
For sure, I agree. Ryan, thoughts?
I mean, did they do anything this offseason? They just kept their team together and brought in Joe Ingles. Whatever.
Anthony Black and Jett Howard also.
Yeah, I didn't like their draft.
Well, you're wrong, so.
I didn't like the Jett Howard pick very much. I get why they do it. They need shooting. It makes sense. Yeah. But I think there were better options at that spot. I like Anthony Black. Don't like Anthony Black on the Magic too much. I've said this before. Yeah, I mean, I just have to trash it because they didn't do anything, in my opinion, that really moves the needle for me. They're doing what you're supposed to do, right? They're relying on linear growth to happen among their young players, which is fine. If you include that, they're probably more middle of the road as far as what they did this offseason, because they don't really need to do anything because they're waiting to see who turns out to be the guys. The one thing if they did, that I would like to see would be consolidate the guard spots. They have 5 guards that they want to play, and they can't play all 5. And all they're losing is the value on those guys. They either need to move Fultz or find a spot for Suggs, or whoever is the odd man out. They need to find somebody, because you're losing development time on those guys, and they're losing value as prospects / veterans. Fultz could be valuable somewhere else. Suggs could be valuable to a rebuilding team. I think the Wizards should try to get him if they can get him on the cheap, since he's kind of been. It seems like with Black, he'll be out of the rotation pretty much, and I think that's a disservice to the potential he has. So yeah, they need to consolidate the guard spot, but they don't have to right now because they're figuring it out. So I just think they should do it before those guys drop off their value too much, where they're not worth what you get back for them.
I agree with everything you said, minus the trash. I splash it because I did like their draft. I love Anthony Black. I've said it many times. I'm a big college basketball guy. He was phenomenal at Arkansas. We're going to talk about another Arkansas draft pick here with Charlotte coming up in a little bit. But the Jet Howard, I didn't necessarily love. I didn't hate it. I think Ryan kind of nailed it. There were other better positional players there at 11. And I agree that they need to consolidate the guard position. I would assume, are going to be sellers at the trade deadline of some of these guards, right? They're probably going to look to move Fultz or Suggs, potentially both. I don't expect both to be off the roster, but it wouldn't shock me if at least one of them is gone after the trade deadline. Fultz probably has the most trade value going out the door if they're looking to bring back draft capital or another veteran player into the building. But they got to find a way to get Anthony Black on the floor, get him the playing time he needs. Hopefully he's working with a shooting coach in Orlando and can up his perimeter game, because that's really his only flaw. If you can get him to buy in on the defensive end, he's a phenomenal facilitator. He's got all of the size in the world. As long as he can develop some sort of perimeter shot, along with basically the rest of their lineup, they're going to be a formidable offense. And pair that with Wendell Carter, he holds down the paint. If you get Anthony Black to buy in on defense, that team could be really good. I love the odds, 2,700 to win that division. That's, like Gary said, it's worth some ducats. All right, let's move on to the final.
One last point. Yeah. I think that's the move, though, right? Like, you draft Anthony Black because you plan on moving Markelle Fultz. You hope that Markelle Fultz finds some of his buried talent there, and you can move him for some pieces. Is it a veteran guy you bring in at a position of need? Maybe. Mm-hmm. Is it draft capital? Probably, right? And I think that's the move. I liked the draft too. I think it's clear, like, the difference between our perspectives here is the draft, because I really liked Anthony Black. I know Jet Howard, they reached on him, but I also think that he's got really big upside in terms of being a shooter.
Yeah,
in a league where shooting is king, right? There's just not enough shooters in the college game that translate to the NBA to say, like, it was a stupid move. Yes, there were other guys that you probably could say, like, I would take him over Jet. But if they looked at Jet and said, we like what he brings, we like that his dad's a former NBA player, we like that he has a good shooting stroke, we can work with that. And it's not like he's a guy that only shooting, right? He can bring other things. He's got some decent size and athleticism, but I think that in a league where you need shooting and on a team that they don't have a ton, right? They've got some guys that you think could become shooters, but they're still waiting for Banchero to get really consistent with his jump shot. The Wagner brothers, of course, right? We know what we get there, but in a league where you need shooting on a team that they don't have a ton, I think that I like the Jet Howard pick if that was their guy, right? Obviously, to take him at 11, that was their guy. Whether or not I agree with the fact that he was the best option, I like the skill set that they were going after, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. I like that you mentioned that his dad was an NBA player. It means he probably comes from pedigree. You have to assume that he understands what it means to be a pro.
Right.
Probably not like a professional college coach, because his dad's kind of violent on the sideline, but at least he knows what it's like in an NBA locker room.
Right.
All right, let's move on to our last team. That's Charlotte. And then after this team, we have a fun new segment coming up that I'll let my boy Ryan take over for.
Yeah, buddy.
Something that we hope that the folks at home can play along with and enjoy with us. All right, so Charlotte Hornets, they finished 27-55. I did not get the official number, and I'm very, very sorry for this, but LaMelo Ball missed a ton of games last year. I think he was probably somewhere in a tattoo parlor getting his hands done over and over again. But as we know, they drafted Brandon Miller out of Alabama, 2nd overall. They drafted Nick Smith out of Arkansas, another guy I like, 27th overall. And they took Amari Bailey out of UCLA, who had that knee injury going into the tournament that sidelined him. They took him in the 2nd round at 41st overall. He's on a 2-way contract right now, so he's going to be playing for their G League, but I fully expect him to get NBA minutes next year. Along with that, they gave LaMelo Ball the full rookie extension, 4 years, $206 million. They signed Miles Bridges, and we won't bring up the off-court stuff, but Miles Bridges to a 1-year, $8 million qualifying offer. They signed Frankie Smokes, Frank Ntilikina, to a 1-year, $2.5 million deal, as well as signing PJ Washington to a 3-year, $46.5 million extension. Their projected lineup going into next year: LaMelo Ball, Scary Terry Rozier, Brandon Miller, PJ Washington, and my boy, Mark Williams. They are clocking in at plus 12,000 to win this division. Ryan, splash or trash this offseason?
I want to say I don't hate that bet, actually.
But you don't like 2,700 to 1?
Like there's a world where they do win the division. I am higher on Charlotte than a lot of people are this season, I think. Obviously as long as Ball is healthy. I was going to trash their offseason until they signed PJ Washington. I think PJ Washington's really good. I think he's underpaid. I think he's very talented. This team's got some depth now. As y'all know, I love Mark Williams as well. Also like Nick Richards. I'm hoping Kai Jones is not having a mental breakdown. This team's got some talent. My concern with this team outside of the offseason is they do almost no rim pressure. It's a jump shooting team. If they have a really good jump shooting year, they're going to be tough to beat. If they do not, they're going to be bad because they just don't. Bridges and Washington are really their rim pressure, and that's about it. The other guys don't really do a lot of that. But I'm going to splash it by the smallest amount because I think the PJ Washington re-signing moves the needle. Because there was a point where they were not going to sign him, and he was going to potentially go somewhere else. But I think getting him for $15 a year is a great deal, and I think that's their best move of the offseason.
I tend to agree. Until they give Mark Williams a max deal, it's probably their best move.
Yeah, all the max deals.
Well, Gary, what do we think, buddy? Splash or trash the offseason for Charlotte?
I'm going to splash in for basically the same reasons that Ryan did. I think the PJ Washington signing is a big deal. I loved him coming into the league. I still think he's a really good player in this league. Domestic violence aside, I think getting Miles Bridges back is a big deal for them. And it counts toward this offseason because it's when he's making his return to the club. Strictly speaking from a basketball perspective, I want to make that very clear, right? We don't advocate none of that shit. But as a basketball player, he is a big asset for that team and to get him back. The other thing is, if LaMelo Ball gets healthy and stays healthy, that's another good acquisition for them in the offseason in terms of being able to have him on the court. And by the way, Washington's defense is fucking looking like dog shit right out the gates. But I like the offseason for them. The Brandon Miller draft, winning that portion of it, right? Yeah, you're kind of the fucking, bridesmaid, right? The maid of honor. But that's a big pick for them. I think that Brandon Miller has a lot of potential in this league as that position, that skill set that he brings. That's going to be a big acquisition for them just through the draft. So I'm splashing it because I feel like Charlotte may have a foundation in place if they can keep everybody healthy. That's going to be the big thing. LaMelo being healthy is the biggest X factor for them. But I'm splashing the offseason. I'm probably not throwing any ducats at the 12,000 to 1, or 1,200 to 1. But
yeah, I agree. The health is such a huge concern for Melo. I did not expect him to be an injury guy when coming into the league, but it turns out there's some soft tissue stuff with him that just is not great and keeps rearing its ugly head. So we really hope that he can stay healthy because he's super exciting to watch, and he's a really, really good basketball player. I want to address this question real quick. They're currently $4 million over the cap. However, they're on the books for $31 million for Gordon Hayward, who's on an expiring deal. So next offseason, they're going to be fine. They'll have a ton of cap room, so they won't have any issue. I don't think they're reaching to the luxury tax level right now. But they did just sell, so like they have that new owner syndrome where it's like we'll pay whatever we need to keep this team competitive or get this team competitive, right? Shout out Josh Harris, do the right thing. So I don't imagine money is going to be an issue for them, but you are right. They had signed some big contracts, and they're going to do that again whenever Brandon Miller and Mark Williams come up for their deals. I can promise you that.
Yep.
That being said, I am also splashing this offseason. I like keeping LaMelo in-house. It's not often you find a player who seems like they want to be in Charlotte, and I have not heard anything to the contrary from LaMelo Ball, right? In today's day and age, you hear everything. You see everything. You hear everything.
Haven't even heard like rumblings from like a contact.
Exactly. And he's a guy coming from LA, the TV show, all of that stuff. Exactly. Like he's been a star since he was 12.
Yeah.
And now he's playing in one of the smallest markets in the NBA. But he seems to be content there, and he got this huge deal. The only thing I worry about with him is motivation, right? He got the huge deal. So what's his motivation to get better or stay on the court? Even if he stays at the same skill level, if he could just stay on the court, he'll be one of the 25 best players in the NBA. Right. Maybe better, right? But I hate to keep beating this drum, huge college basketball guy. I loved watching Brandon Miller in college. He was phenomenal at Alabama, and I expect that he will be able to continue to develop his skill set and be a very, very, very good NBA player, all-star level probably. People knock him for his playmaking ability. They said the same things about Carmelo Anthony. They said the same thing about Kevin Durant. Like they said the same things about Anthony Edwards, and he's taking a leap in superstardom. Like they say these things about guys who are 19 years old. But you have to understand they come into the league and they're going to get better. I believe in Brandon Miller. I think he could be a very, very good NBA player. I love the PJ Washington shining. The guy is a very underrated player in the NBA. He gets almost no publicity, but is just super efficient and is an underrated defensive player for them. And then obviously Mark Williams. Ryan knows that I love Mark Williams. Gary, at this point, you know I love Mark Williams. Everybody knows I love Mark Williams. That dude is an absolute stud. He's a defensive menace, and he's somebody that is a much, much better offensive player than the mainstream media gives him credit for. And I expect him to have a very, very good year. He's a sleeper for like third team all defense. Or second, I guess they only do two, so maybe second team all defense. He behind Embiid, is he the best center in the East? Miles Turner maybe is better. If Giannis, obviously, if you want to make him a center. But, I mean, like, it's Embiid, and then it's kind of it for me.
Yeah.
Second is aggressive.
Find me a better center that's not Giannis.
Brook Lopez.
He's better than Brook Lopez.
Ryan
If you put him next to Giannis,
Adebayo.
Bam's a 4. If you put Mark Williams,
plays the 5.
If you put, okay, I'm stating facts to fit my case here. First off, if you put Mark Williams in Milwaukee, you're telling me he's not a defensive player of the year candidate, just the way that Brook Lopez was.
Vucevic,
better than Vuce.
There's Jared
It's Miles Turner.
Allen.
That's the answer.
Jared Allen.
We're talking playoff Jared Allen or regular season Jared Allen? Nick Claxton is probably better. I'll give you Nick Claxton.
I mean, I love Mark Williams, but we're being very aggressive here.
I'm an aggressive kind of guy, right?
He could be top 5. I'll give him that.
Yeah, top 5.
Especially this year, I think.
For sure. Okay, so we all three splashed, yeah? No, Ryan trashed because he said that it. No, you splashed. I should have written this down. I'm very bad at this, boys. I should have written this down. My apologies. So we got splash. We had 3 splashes. We're all on the same page here now. So, just to recap.
Group think.
To recap, let's run down our splashes and trashes real fast. I will start. I trashed the Southeast Miami Heat. I trashed the Southeast Atlanta Hawks. I splashed Southeast Washington Wizards. I splashed the Orlando Magic, and I splashed the Charlotte Hornets. Ryan, give me your list again. Miami.
Don't gotta say trash.
Atlanta.
I think I said they're 50-50, but I think I
You went slightly trash.
Yeah, I
tried.
trash. I trashed it because I haven't made a move yet. Yep.
That's true. That's true. Washington.
Splash that.
Orlando.
I trashed because they got to consolidate the backcourt.
And Charlotte.
I splashed mostly because of PJ Washington.
All right. And Gary, let's close it out, dude. Miami.
I was heavy on splashing this. Miami was trash. I splashed the rest. Atlanta very slightly because of the maneuverability that they have now. Whether or not they use it is another story. But I splashed the rest because I felt like the young talent and the potential to get better.
Nice. We love it. All right, boys. We have a new segment this week. We're very excited to introduce this segment. I'm going to hand the reins off to my boy Ryan. Dr. Naismith himself. Take it away, my dude.
Well, I thought, it's the off season, and I love basketball trivia. Bentley regularly rails against me talking about Walter Dukes at work. 50s legend. He really wasn't that good. So I made a quiz that we're going to kind of do Family Feud style. So what I did was I took the top. Well, y'all know I love vintage basketball, as I just said, right? So I knew that y'all were worried that I was going to do that. So I didn't. I did it's since 2000. So this is going to be easy for y'all. Okay. So how we're going to do it is I have a list of the top 20 since 2000 NBA players with combined points, rebounds, assists. So points, rebounds, assists, all added together since 2000. Who's had the most? I have the top 20. So how I'm going to do it, how I'm going to score this is the lower person you get that point. So if it's number 20, I'll give you 20 points. Okay. If you get number 1, which I feel like we all kind of know who number 1 is.
Wait, I'm going to go first.
But you only get 1 point for that. So, do you take your free points? I'll give you. We'll do 5 guesses and see how we feel if we want to keep going. I'll do 5. Let me flip a coin to see who goes first, real fast. Who wants to be heads?
I want to be tails, dude.
All right.
Okay. It's heads. You want to be first or second?
Second.
Okay. Let me see if I can present this. You might be able to see.
Okay, so our goal is to get higher numbers, right?
Yeah. Okay. Can you see the quiz I made?
There you go.
Okay, so I made this custom.
I like it.
No free advertising, dude. What the fuck?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, these guys didn't pay me, unfortunately. The total is their total points, rebounds, and assists since 2000.
Since 2000.
2000. Okay.
Yep. So whenever you're ready, I will type in your answer, and we'll see if it's correct.
I'm first?
No, Gary said he wants to go first.
No, he said second. He wants to go second.
Oh, you want to go second? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, my first guess would be...
I should go first because I know I'm only going to get 1 point for the last person because we're going to leave him.
Damn it! You weren't supposed to figure that out.
You go ahead. Go ahead, bud.
Okay, I'm going to go Rajon Rondo.
Okay. Not there. All right, Gary.
Disrespect.
Give me Kevin Garnett.
Spelling it wrong. He is on here 100%.
Yeah.
There we go.
You should definitely try Rajon Rondo then. Does it want first name?
Rajon is not on there. I know.
Okay.
Are you sure? Points, rebounds, and assists, he's not on there?
I will try, but you got 8 points for that, Gary.
I like it. All right.
I'll try full name. Rajon Rondo. See? Not on there.
That's
all right.
Okay. All right.
Because he scores 8 points a game for his career.
All right. Man, people are really going to see that I don't know my basketball history here on this podcast.
All All right, Bentley.
Points, rebounds, and assists since the year 2000.
To be fair, Rondo's not a bad guess if you're trying to sneak like 20.
Yeah. Give me Dirk.
Oh God, here we go.
It was a little interesting. I was thinking Rondo would be lower on the list. Wow, second. Okay, all right. Well,
second since 2000.
Yeah,
a lot of rebounds. A lot of rebounds.
That's
and a ton of points.
Yeah.
Ton of points. All right, 2 points for Bentley there.
All right. Give me Chris Bosh.
Oh, that's aggressive. I got to type whole name. I keep forgetting. I'm sorry. Not there.
I was hoping to slot him in the bottom 5 there. I knew the shortened career was going to hurt me there, but
I don't think he played long enough.
Yeah, I was hoping he might slot in there late.
Give me Vince Carter.
All right, Vince Sanity, always a good choice.
Nice.
That's 10, 11, 12. That's 14 points.
That's good. I thought he'd be a little higher.
Yeah.
Okay.
Years played, he would be.
Yeah. I got to make sure I get on the board here. Give me Paul Pierce.
Yeah, how many times I have misspelled Paul Pierce's name because I'm dumb.
EI.
They put EI. That's 10, right?
Okay, 10's not bad. I'll take that.
10 points for Gary. Gary is in the league with 18 points. Bentley has 16 right now.
Okay.
Give me Kevin Durant.
Oh, that might be sneaky. Okay.
Damn boy.
All right.
For a guy who hasn't played his whole career.
Yeah.
Give me Allen Iverson.
Okay. Not there.
Really?
Yep.
Damn. Hoping I can think of too. Wow.
Since 2000.
We don't. You can save number 1 for the end, or get your free point.
Yeah, you get your free point.
His are it's so much higher than everybody else's too.
Yeah, it's crazy.
What about Steve Nash?
Your favorites? Not there.
Damn. All right.
You got
that's crazy.
Points weigh pretty heavy here.
Kevin Love.
I like that.
Not there?
Not there.
Wow.
He's not 30,000 combined. That's crazy.
That's a lot.
It is a lot.
30,000's a lot.
30,000 is a lot.
We can go till the clock runs out if y'all just want to go back and forth until there's 6 minutes left. So
should I just say LeBron and get it over with?
You want?
Tear the Band-Aid off?
Yeah, may as well.
You say LeBron. I'll say Kobe. We'll tear that Band-Aid off too.
Yeah.
Bentley got 1 point there. You want Kobe? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bentley is in the lead now.
Since 2000. Tim Duncan?
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll be 4th. Oh, not 4th.
Ooh, 5th, huh?
Bonus points.
Yeah, clearly. LaMarcus Aldridge.
Ooh, that's a good one. Nice.
Love it. Was that
17 points.
There we go.
That's pretty good.
That.
Man, this is going to be crazy. Is Tracy McGrady on this list?
Where his good is good enough?
Doesn't
Damn.
get there. Yeah.
Tough.
His peak was high though.
Yeah, I thought I might slot right in at the back.
Yeah, it was. Marcus can't. No, not Camby. No. Carmelo Anthony.
Your boy.
Probably 4. 6. Okay.
6.
Who the hell's it for? Who are we forgetting, Bentley? Who the fuck are we forgetting?
His quizzes can be tough. They're harder
It's
than
not.
they look.
It's not Dwayne Wade.
You just look up Dwayne Wade's total number.
No, didn't I guess Dwayne Wade already?
No, you haven't guessed Dwayne Wade.
Oh, Dwayne Wade then.
Okay.
I thought I guessed Dwayne Wade earlier.
Wayne
I
Wade.
can tell you who it won't be from that draft. Darko Milicic.
15
Oh,
points.
I have a guess. I have
Gary's turn. 15 points for Bentley. That's a big one.
That was good.
I really thought I had guessed him already. Dwan Wade.
Juan Wade. Can't believe you forgot.
Who am I forgetting? Good Lord.
I can't believe these completely abstract numbers aren't giving it away.
Can I get a jersey number associated with the totals?
I was going to put team, but I thought that was too easy.
Let's try Ray Allen.
Ray Allen.
Yeah, it's a shot in the dark.
All right, try. Give me Chris Paul.
Oh,
Chris Paul.
good call. Ooh, still haven't hit 4 though.
7 points.
Interesting.
You're hitting the front end, which is good. Those are the guys you got to get, right?
Let's see. Since 2000.
Oh! Sorry, I paused it till you're ready. This clock will run out.
Oh. Let's see. Since 2000. I feel like it's Steph Curry.
All right, Stephen Curry. Oh, God, that's a terrible spell. Stephen Curry. Yep.
Okay.
16 points for Stephen Curry. That's good.
Is Russell Westbrook on this list?
Cool. Trip dub guy.
Is it 1L? It's 1L, right?
I think it's 2.
2 L's?
He's 4th?
He's 4th?
Wow.
Mr. Triple Double.
What a fucking meteoric middle of his career he had.
I mean, more than Tim Duncan. A lot of assists helps him, right? Like when you're averaging 25, 10, and 10 for a couple years.
Sure.
This is where it gets tough.
Yeah.
Um,
Who was worse than Paul Pierce but better than Vince Carter?
And not necessarily better.
Right,
just,
right.
Just because they got the number.
I have another guess.
You are in the lead, Bentley. I believe. Close, though.
Stephon Marbury? I don't think he played enough years in the league, but yeah.
Is Chris Webber on this list?
Nope.
Damn.
Shaq didn't play.
Oh, I have another.
Thousands, did he?
He started in 90,
92.
92, yeah. But you got to think it's 2000 to now, so lots of guys have had
There's
plenty
a lot
of
of
time.
guys that have played since. Yeah. No. Wouldn't be. Giannis hasn't played long enough.
Gary's dad, give us some guesses here.
Yeah, right? Chicago's up fucking 10-0.
Yep.
Oh.
Can I give you a guess?
Yeah, go ahead.
Fuck. I was gonna say Kawhi potentially. I don't think he's played enough though.
He sits out all the time too. Blake Griffin.
Oh, that's not a bad guess. Locke?
Balake.
No.
Not there, huh?
All right, do y'all want to keep going? We got 30 seconds. I can pause it if y'all want to keep going.
Let's get one more each, and then we'll see.
Okay. Bentley with the lead. He's trying to close it out here.
I don't care. We can break out the basketball cards. Yeah, for real.
All right, here we go.
All right.
Tom Satch Sanders, famous 2000s player. I got my Adam Morrison card right here. I'm pretty sure he had a pretty good career. I got a Yogi Berra card here.
I have my guess ready.
Okay.
Gary, do you have a guess?
Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
All right. My guess is James Harden.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yep.
Really?
All right, Gary, who you got? You got 20 seconds.
Amari Stoudemire.
Stoudemire. Nope, not there. All right,
Did you spell that right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it did.
Okay.
You'll see the answers here right at the end.
Gasol. God damn.
Yeah. Oh, Joe Johnson.
Joe
Wow,
Johnson.
DeMar DeRozan. Good
He
for
snuck
him.
in at number 20.
Yeah,
Good for him.
that's a tough one.
Zach
I should've-
Randolph, another guy that you forget about. Gasol and Randolph from the Grindhouse fucking Grizzlies.
Yep. I should have gotten Joe Johnson, though. He played forever.
Dwight Howard, though, we talk about him all the time.
I think if I gave you teams, you would have got like half.
Probably.
Oh, we'd have gotten all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Randolph maybe not. That might be the only one that would be tough.
Zebo, he was a fucking fantasy monster for a while, too.
All right, let me count the points up real fast.
Great podcasting here. Radio silence, boys.
Yeah, Bentley scored 68 points.
Nice.
Okay.
Gary scored 60 points.
Damn.
Close.
That
game.
James Harden was the difference.
Yeah, James Harden clutched
That's
at the
difference.
end there.
Yeah. Attaboy.
Very close. One
Well done.
answer away.
Well
Yeah.
done.
I tried not to hit y'all with the 50 stuff because,
I think Dwayne Wade was the swing there, actually.
yeah, Wade was a good answer.
Oh, yeah, Wade was a big one.
Steph Curry's LaMarcus Aldridge, really good answer.
Yeah, you got the two best answers. Steph and
Yeah.
Aldridge.
Yeah.
I was wondering if y'all would get DeRozan. I was like, maybe. Because he's like 11th in points or something like that. He's
You
like
forget about him. I forget about him.
We should have gotten Dwight Howard, though, and
Should have
Powell.
gotten Dwight. Should have gotten Dwight.
And Joe Johnson.
Yeah, 2 Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
And potentially a third one with DeMar.
I can forgive Zebo and DeMar DeRozan, but Joe Johnson, Pau Gasol, and Dwight Howard, we should have gotten.
ISO Joe.
Well, good game, guys. I enjoyed it. Hopefully next week we can rotate and I can not know what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, boys, let's close this thing out. As is tradition on Thursday night, we usually give out a pick for the NFL game. However, it has already started. Washington is down 10-0, so I will not be asking you for an NBA pick this week or an NFL pick this week. Rather, just some closing thoughts. Give me something for the weekend that's on your mind, something you're excited about, a pick you have. Just give me anything for the weekend, a college game you're interested in. Gary, you go ahead.
Red River, baby. It's Red River weekend. I'm actually traveling up to New York. I'm going to meet up with a bunch of buddies up there. We're going to go to this wing joint in upstate New York, drink some beers, eat some wings, and watch Oklahoma versus Texas.
Nice.
We were actually on opposite sides of the fence on that too, so it'll be really interesting to see how that works out. I've got Boomer Sooner, and you got Hook'em, and it's going to be a good time. We're all going to put some money on it, so we're going to squad ride something while we're at the restaurant. So
should squad ride freaking horns, dude. All right, Brian, give me something, brother. Talk to me.
Yeah, as a native Texan, of course, I pay attention to the Red River rivalry. That's a classic. Hard to not want to watch that. The only thing I really want to say, I don't have much going on that outside of my 100% record in predicting Thursday night games. That will continue because I didn't make a prediction.
That's true. You can't lose a game you didn't pick.
I want to say rest in peace to Dick Butkus,
Yes.
who passed away. One of the greats, a guy who pretty much all middle linebackers are judged against, at least pretty much until the modern era where middle linebackers have lost a lot of their value. But from the 60s to now, one of the all-time Bears legends, and maybe he's guiding the Bears to a victory tonight. The spirit of Dick Butkus.
Yeah, I wish I had seen that news before I placed my bets tonight, honestly.
Yeah, I assume they did a moment of silence or something.
Probably had to. They'll do it all across the NFL this weekend.
Yeah. He was born in
Chicago plus 5.5 is a lock on the NFL show, so it's looking pretty good already.
He was born in Chicago too, so it's like he's also
like
a local guy too.
Yep.
He didn't breathe. He exhaled wind.
Yeah.
So my shout out for this weekend is to the Philadelphia Phillies. as a man myself who has incredible flow, just poking out everywhere from the back of my baseball helmet. That is an all hair team. They have like 5 dudes that just have incredible lettuce. I also would like to shout them out for closing out the wild card last night to give the NFL full center stage so that everyone could see just how bad Washington is. I'm also excited to watch them play against Atlanta. So my shout out is just to the Phillies. Go Braves. Shop them. For all of us here at Backyard Buckets, presented by Backyard Sports, we appreciate everyone tuning in this evening, all the comments and interaction. I know it was a long show, but we had a lot of fun there at the end. We appreciate you sticking with us through the offseason. And like my banner says, only 19 days until the NBA regular season tips off. So stick around, stick with us. We're going to win some money this year. We're going to have a lot of fun along the way. All right, boys, from all of us here, peace out. Y'all have a good evening.